Hey everyone, Kevin here with Divinely Designed, and I have a paper crafting video today. So I'm going to the Stamp and Scrapbook Expo in Edison, New Jersey soon, in just 2 weeks or a week or so. And I'm doing the card swap again this year. This will be my third year doing the card swap, so you create 16 different cards. 15 of those cards you put out on a table and people can kind of come around and pick them up. You can also go around and pick up 15 cards from 15 different other people, cards that you like. And then the 16th card is put up sort of so that everybody goes around and kind of votes on it. And then there's a most appreciated card. And there's usually like a door prize or something, but it's always been a nice way to like meet some other stampers and you know, share your style of card making with other people, get to see how other people make cards, get ideas, get inspired, talk about card making with people who, you know, are interested in that thing as well. So this is the card I'm making this year. They're already finished. And as part of the swap, what I thought I would do is create a video, and I'm going to put a little slip of paper in my card. So anyone who takes my card can then also find a link to this video so they can come and watch how the card was made itself. So I have two slightly different versions. You can see there's one that has a red kind of button with a rose button here, and this other one has a black button that says hello with some other smaller buttons here. That's really the only difference, and the only reason that is different is because the buttons I bought, you know, I only had so many of those. So, but what I thought I would do is go through a video of how to make this sort of step by step. Okay, so the first thing I'll talk about is this little cameo that's in the middle here. This is actually a piece that I made myself. Now, I really like the way this card ended up coming out. I really think it sort of represents me. I like the very modern style of it, but it's also very complex. There's a lot of different components to it. All those components are handmade. So I think that's kind of me. I like making really kind of complex cards. And ones that are also then very pretty. So I bought this mold online. It's a little cameo mold, and I'm using Fimo Air, which is this clay that's super, super light. You can air dry it. You can actually microwave this also. So I started just by, you know, making these different molds, and you just sort of squish it in there. Make sure you get enough pressure, and then what I do is I take an X-Acto blade and just kind of saw off the top portion, and I find it works if you can just cape it in one direction. You'll get a nice smooth cut there. This particular mold, there's two pieces of it. So once you're done, obviously making both parts there, this is a really flexible silicone mold, so you just sort of pop it out, and you can leave that portion to dry. So what you end up with are these two pieces here. And this clay, if you haven't used it, is super, super light. These things weigh practically nothing. But what I did then was I took some gold leaf. This is called Florentine gold, liquid gold, for the base portion. And then I used this mother of pearl kind of paint for the cameo itself. And then once that's done, I took some waxes. Sorry, I hope I'm in the shot here. Some of Prima waxes. This is copper, this one's rose gold, and sort of just took my finger and kind of brushed it over them. And the end result is this little cameo here with kind of the gold. I actually ended up, I think I used some graphite also from Inca Gold, just to give it a few highlights. So that's creating the one little cameo piece. I then obviously have a base here. So this is an A2 card base that I have a hot pink piece of paper that is 4.5 by 5 1/4, and then this striped piece of paper that is 1/8 of an inch smaller. So I get a nice frame around that. And the cameo is kind of going to go right in the middle there, but that's how I made the cameo portion. There are a couple of other things I made for this card. I made some stick pins. So these are just floral pins that I put some beads on, and I thought I'd quickly kind of show how I got those to stay. And it's not too hard. Now, I would, if this were something that was getting picked up, I might use super glue, but for this I just used hot glue and just sort of touched it at the very top and pushed the bead up toward the top. And then for this last bead here, just sort of create a little space and put a little hot glue there for the last bead, and then push the last bead up. And so between the first and the last one, that'll stay nice and tight there. These, obviously are not going to come off the card, so they shouldn't have to do a lot of moving. So shouldn't need a whole lot. Now, a lot of times you will get this little bead of hot glue sort of there in the back. When I put them on the cards, I just try to face those toward the back of my card, so you end up not seeing them. Okay, so those were the stick pins, and then obviously I made some flowers. So I'm a big fan of Heartfelt Creations, so I have some Heartfelt Creations stamps. In this case, I'm using the small classic Petunia. I stamped that out here with some Versamark ink, and then just simply took some gold embossing powder. I like embossing in gold. This is Gary M. Berlin and Company Ultrafine Gold. So just emboss that. I embossed a bunch of medium and small size flowers, and then used the dies to cut them out. I thought I'd talk a little bit about how I shape them. So I have some that I've colored already. To color them, I used some zig markers. Now, I didn't do anything super complicated. I actually used two for the leaf. The major one is yellow-green, and I just colored the whole thing in, and then used light green to do kind of just a little stripe in the middle to give it a little bit of contrast. For the flowers themselves, I actually love the way these look. What I did was I took, this is fluorescent pink, and for the large flowers, I colored both sides, but left a sort of white stripe in the middle, and then took pink and traced the outside of the leaf, again leaving that middle section white. And I really like the sort of stripe effect that gives that flower. Similar for the smaller one, but I didn't leave the white stripe. I colored it all in. I left the tips uncolored, and then used that same yellow-green to give the little tips of the flowers that little green. And I really like the color combination here because it feels very sort of springy to me. When the flowers get grouped together on the card, I also find that having this little bit of green on the leaves helps to break up the differentiation of the flowers themselves, because otherwise they look very similar. So I like to have that little bit of color difference. Now for the leaves, it's pretty simple. I just take a ball stylus here and kind of run it around the edge and then in the middle a little bit on all three of the leaves, and then turn it over and give it a little press right in the middle. And that's really it. That's all I did for both the medium and the small leaves. For the flowers themselves, very similar, just going to kind of run around the edge here. I want to get a nice cup shape on the back of the flower. So use the stylus and get, again, kind of a good ball shape there on the petal itself. And for the small one, very similar. Now this one actually, it's so small, you can actually, I think, just kind of push down firmly and give it a little wiggle, and that's going to give you enough of a kind of cup shape. And then for both of them, turn them over, and I like a thicker piece of foam for this portion because I want to give them a really strong press here, because these are petunias, so I want them to have, you know, a very trumpet-like shape to them. So I find giving this a very strong press right in the middle here will add to that trumpet shape that you get in the end there. Now, this is good. I like this. Now, I have actually used the petunias before and actually put hot glue on the back to force that kind of trumpet shape. Now, I made 16 cards, and there was a lot of work into this, so I did not do that with these. I really just pressed down in the middle to give a good trumpet shape, and then when I put them on the card, I made sure I kind of shaped them with my hands a little bit more. So that's the shaping of the flowers themselves. I also have a word die cutout that I cut out in gold. It says Hope. This is from a set from Little Yellow Bicycle, and they have different sets of word dies. So this is from one that was Love, Laugh, and Smile, but I cut out a bunch of dies for that. And I think that's, oh, and then obviously I have the buttons themselves. These were just from a set of buttons that I got from Michaels. And then I have a piece of ribbon that I've cut out and notched the ends at, that we're going to make kind of a little ribbon embellishment on. So, okay. So to put this card together, pretty easy. All right, so I'm going to start off with my base. For this, I'm going to use my, my Glue Glider Pro here. Add my hot pink. And then do the same thing for the black and white stripe. But just make sure to offset this just a little bit so you get a nice little thin frame of that hot pink all around the card. Okay. All right, now I like using hot glue for the majority of this because, again, these are going out, you know, they're going to get a fair amount of sort of wear and tear on them and be handled. So I want to make sure everything's put together nice and firmly. So I have some hot glue I'm going to use on my cameo here. And that just goes right in the middle pretty much. Just like that. Okay. Next, I'm going to take my stick pins, and again, I have that little glue dot. I'm just going to make sure it faces toward the back. In this case, for this pink one, I tuck it under the cameo there just a little bit and point it up toward that corner. And then this one, I want it to be a little bit shorter to give it a little bit more visual interest. So I push that one down further and then add a little bit of hot glue here to keep everything in place. Okay. Next come the buttons. And the buttons are going to go kind of right down here in this corner off to the side. And in terms of composition of the card, I'm looking for kind of my buttons and the ribbon to sort of balance out this very tall, you know, pins that are up here. So I have the two smaller buttons in this case. So my little black and white one, and the little red dotted one. And then my ribbon, I fold in half, and I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue to the back, to the middle, and to the top, and add that right there, and sort of sandwich the big button in between. Make sure to pull out my ribbon here to make it look like it's flared out a little bit. Sort of adjust the angle of my button there. Okay. And then we're going to add the flowers. So I have them grouped kind of in a, what I think is a nice balanced and sort of eye-pleasing way. But this first one goes with the leaf kind of pointing in between those stick pins. And then a larger flower with one of the flat sides of the leaves kind of following the side of the cameo. I want, obviously I want them to cover the cameo a little bit, but not a lot. I still want that to be kind of a focal point to give some interest, but I definitely want the flowers to be prominent. Then another large flower kind of follows along the edge here. The last big flower kind of comes out to the side toward that bottom corner. And I'm kind of pushing them together to make them look, like it's a full bunch. And these last two smaller ones, one's going to go here and here to kind of fill out visually sort of that bunch of flowers and makes them look, full, like it's like a full grouping of flowers. I like having, you can see each one of the flowers has one of the leaves, and I've glued them together. So I like the look that gives, especially with the petunias. Okay, and now that I have them together, just get that little hot glue little strings out of there. I'm going to take my tweezers and kind of just make sure I'm kind of zhuzhing up the little flowers here. I'll use my fingers to kind of squish them together to get more of that trumpet shape. Here I'm going to make sure that some of the leaves come out, the petals of the flower, so that you get to see a more complete version of each of the flowers. So you're going to sort of tuck some leaves in, bring some out, just make sure it looks good. This one a little here, so you see it's sort of hidden behind that leaf. I want to make sure the flower is more prominent than the leaf there. Okay. And finally, the last thing I did on my flower, I wanted to do something for the center, and I wanted to do something a little bit unusual. I was going to use prills, but decided to use some beads. So I have these little teardrop beads here. I have this little quick stick tool, and on the end of it I used some mini glue dots and just kind of wrapped them around so that I can use that to pick these up here and put them on my little tool. And then I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue and sort of put it on the end of the teardrop of the bead, and then that goes right in the middle. And It sticks pretty quickly, but you do want to make sure that you know, these can sort of fall against the side of the bead, and I want them to stand up straight because it gives them more of a translucent quality to them. I really like how that looks. If not, they sort of fall against the side of the flower and they catch all the shadows and they become a lot darker. So this is one of the sort of nitty-gritty aspects of this card. There's lots of different tiny elements that went into it that took a lot of time. But you know, that's sort of my style, is I like complicated cards. I used some red beads and some really light pink ones. The light pink ones are going to go in the small flowers, and the red ones are going in the larger flowers. Again, because they are colored so similarly, I wanted, you know, some ways to sort of differentiate them. And so that's why the little ones have that sort of green color on the petals, and also here so they can have the centers be a little bit different. Visually, I think that is more pleasing. What you end up with is those three large flowers sort of clustered there with the red centers, and the smaller flowers sort of scattered with the lighter centers. And I think, you know, visually that gives you a really pleasing look to it. The last thing is my die cut, and I have this little die cut that I cut out of gold foil, and I'm just going to attach this with some liquid glue. And I like to tuck the tail kind of right underneath this little thing here. And I think that sort of connects them and lets your eye sort of travel a nice path, sort of, you know, from the hope down to the flowers and out through the ribbon here. I like the overall flow of the card there. And I really am happy with this sort of very modern look to it. The black and white and pink is, you know, super trendy. I like that it still has this like classic elements to it. I love the mix of sort of that old and the new. I'm really happy with how this came out overall. So that's it. If you came here from the card exchange, I hope I got to meet with you and chat with you. And I hope you like my card. And please leave a comment down below. And that's it. Thanks very much for watching. And comments, questions, leave them below. I'm happy to answer them. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great day. Bye.